My older sister-in-law is trying to name my new baby. I'm 32 weeks pregnant with our first child, and my sister-in-law, husband's only sibling, is crossing a few boundaries. She has 3 children, and isn't planning on any more. When we met with her, and told her about the baby, she didn't react. No congratulations, just okay, when is it due? I know I might sound like a hormonal mess because I am a bit. It's just getting a little too much for me and I feel like I have to defend my rights as a new parent. I've listed the current events below. After finding out about the baby, she's let me know a natural birth is the only way to go, and that she is very opposed to any drugs. She brought over her baby's old things when I was 6 weeks along, which is very kind, but we live in a 1-bedroom condo, until our new place is rebuilt after some flood damage, and there is just no room, so it's taking over the living room. She lives in a large home, and could have held onto it for a while. She called her mom, who told my partner I wasn't grateful. She's started a Facebook chat group for us to name the baby, meaning my husband, herself and me. I'm not okay with this being a shared decision with her. It's very personal to me. She's bought us a little outfit for the baby to come home from the hospital in. I've been keeping my eye out for a homecoming outfit, and it's important it's something I've chosen. She started a private chat with me directly on Facebook, said I know you need the money, so I'll give you $500 to name the baby. I didn't respond, but I think Facebook told her that I saw it in real time, because she just continues. No, $600? No response from me. $700? No response from me. Okay, $750 is all I can give right now, so I think that should get me middle name rights too. I just ignored her. Ultimately, these may sound like minor grievances, but they are all exciting little decisions for us to make as new parents. I'd like some privacy, and have explained how this is affecting me to my partner. I feel as it's his sister, he needs to find a kind way to tell her to back off. He's told me I'm trying to turn him against her. I feel like an ignored baby incubator. Please let me know what you think. In summary, my sister-in-law is pushing boundaries, trying to make decisions for our first child. She's too involved and I need her to back off. My husband thinks I'm trying to turn him against his sister. Dear husband going overseas, and mother-in-law mimicking me. I don't even know where to begin with this. Over the last few years I've had a generally okay relationship with my mother-in-law. She started a few things here and there, but never big enough to warrant a genuine reaction from me. She's recently been far more invested in our kids, and actually spending time with them, so that's been really nice, but for about 2 months now things have started to take a really odd turn, and it's gotten to the point that even my husband has commented on it. Basically, my mother-in-law seems to be trying to mimic me, in every sense of the word. It sounds incredibly narcissistic when I type it out, to assume she'd be doing this, but the feeling is there nonetheless. It started out small. I have been pretty big into Korean skincare for a while now. I regularly share things I find helpful with my friends and family, and gift things I can't use. She fully adopted all my favorite items and routine, like straight everything I use and wear. She copies. Not a huge deal. I liked we had a similar interest, and something to bond over, and chat about. Then came the hair. I went from my normal 6-year red to jet black. I just got the bug, and went for it. Literally the very next day, guess who is on Instagram with jet black hair? She even went as far as to come over for a visit specifically to ask dear husband if he loved her hair, and if she looked nice, then feigned ignorance that she forgot I had just done mine. Still though, not a huge deal. We laughed about it because it was genuinely plausible that she didn't pay attention. Plus I've been guilty of seeing someone's hair, and loving it, and wanting to change mine. Then came the plants. I have way too many plants. I mean a lot. It's a problem, but my husband regularly tells me he finds it cute how I obsess over them, so he enables a way. Mother-in-law out of nowhere texts me to tell me she wants a full-fledged garden. The works. She needs all my advice to do it. Okay, again not too bad. She knows I garden, and have a vested interest in plants. This is another thing I can share with her, and it's a great hobby for anyone to pick up. Then it starts getting weird. She gets literally all the same plants I get, and exclaims she doesn't want help anymore because she knows it all. Okay. Whatever floats your boat, mama. Then she starts posting pictures of plants my husband has gifted me after I post them with captions like, "Got these babies from me for me. #PlantMom." This lady regularly kills every plant she's ever come in contact with, but again not a huge deal. Plants have become a cool new thing, and it's really not a bad hobby, so good for her I guess. We ignore it. A few more things like this happen, but I feel like I've rambled, and you've got the gist. The real part I'm perplexed about is dear husband's upcoming deployment. It's been a mess from the get-go. She can't remember anything anyone tells her if it doesn't directly involve her. She's forgotten, and asked about his leave date a million times, But now suddenly it's the worst thing that's ever happened to her. I don't know if it's because it's just now become real to her or if it's for attention, but it's driving me bananas. She regularly talks about bombs, and if his dormitories will be bomb-proof in front of the children, which pisses me off to no end. We have to constantly remind her that she isn't to be posting his info all over her social media for sympathy either. They obviously don't give the leave dates out for valid reasons. But she does know the area and general time, and I'm 100% sure she'd post it all. Lots more little mimic things begin popping up, really small minuscule stuff. But it's gotten to the point that my husband begins to go, what the heck is happening? Finally, it gets to a point that I really lost my crap. She's speaking to him about the area he'll be in, which is honestly about as safe as any deployment can get. We try to soothe her by letting her know he isn't in a tent out in some desert war zone. He'll be able to make calls home, and we can send him packages. Just the usual reassuring stuff. Out of nowhere she asks if he's stationed next to, insert large city name. He says no, that he isn't incredibly far away, but the way it's set up he wouldn't be able to physically get there on his few off days. She says, well, I'm going to take a plane down and visit you anyways. I'm sorry, what? We both sat there open-mouthed for a good minute before I finally scooped my brain back into my cranium and asked her if she'd just announced she'd be taking holiday down to see deployed dear husband. She said, yes, that's exactly what I mean. I'll just take a plane down for the week and stay in hotel in city name and meet you when I can. Of course he says, Mom, you can't just come round for a fun vacation. I'm deployed. It's an operating military base in a foreign country. She throws a fit. I said, well, mother-in-law, what do you propose to do if you got there? Send me and his children pictures? No worries, Dad is fine. Here's some snaps of him. Why on earth do you think you'd be the one visiting if that crazy idea was even viable? We change the subject, and the rest of the visit goes okay. She says her goodbyes, and then proceeds to text him on her drive home about how she will be expecting a call from him every day too, and how she's going to also be suffering while he's gone. Here's the thing, I get it. As a mom I do. You don't stop babying your kids because they get older. Deployments are hard on people not used to them. Hell, I'm from a military family, and this isn't my first time through it, and I'll still find it hard. I get reality doesn't always hit people slowly. Sometimes it comes with a bang. But has she lost her ever-loving mind? I'll fly over to visit you, call every day. He has 2 children, mother-in-law, who will miss him very, very much, who will have their whole routines turned upside down, who will feel his absence every day. You get to keep on. Nothing about your home life or daily routine changes. It's perfectly valid that you'll worry for your son, that you'll think of him. But to somehow make this situation so awkward for months beforehand, and then immediately make it about yourself now that the real time is coming up? No, not to mention he is the one deploying. Not you, not me, him. Did it even occur to you he might be genuinely scared and nervous? That maybe he needs reassurance instead of spending all his time consoling you? You're his mother. Buck up, and be even a little bit strong for him. Yeah, we had a serious discussion about it last night, and dear husband seems to be of the same impression as me that this is definitely an escalation in behavior lately. He's very worried she'll behave poorly towards me once he's truly gone. But he says he fully supports me in blocking and silence if I feel it's the best option. When I type it all out it seems rather silly, and not as serious. But having it happen over these last few months has really put me on edge. It seems like every conversation now seems like a test or double-edged sword, and nothing is ever innocent anymore. It's all been rather odd and uncomfortable, and I can't tell if I'm just reading into it because of nerves or if I'm truly justified to an extent in thinking this is off. Extremist Christian in-laws couldn't separate the church from the family, willingly let me volunteer 9 hours of work before telling me I wasn't welcome at the event after the work was done. I had married into a Christian values family. I'm talking the extreme side. My ex-husband-in-law's entire family founded and owned a local church. Every single one of his brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles or cousins had some role to play within the church. Pastors, preachers, gospel singers, you name it. I was expected to also play a role now within the church that I had been welcomed into the family officially by marriage. I became a kids' church teacher's aide. As time went on, the wool was being pulled away from my eyes slowly. Not one of his family members had a job. Yet they drove several cars, lived in private estate housing, all their children went to private school. His cousin even owned a jet and a boat. How could they afford on this? Definitely not on welfare, let me tell you that. Of course we all hear about those classic "they don't have to pay taxes, they are rich because they feed off the poor, they are scammers and frauds," and that's exactly what this was. It became increasingly hard as all of my time and energy was spent at the church. It wasn't just the Sunday service that I had to attend, but everything else as well. That included community dinner night, Bible study, women's Bible study, Friday youth group, church camps, you name it. Because of this, I did not have time for a job. The church was a priority over a job to my in-laws, but who was going to pay my bills? Certainly not them. There was a point in time that my husband and I almost got evicted because we were weeks behind in rent. We were on the verge of homelessness. I had no choice but to get a job, and so I did. This wasn't one of those 9-to-5 stable jobs. It was odd hours. You took what you could, even on the weekend. This infuriated my in-laws. How could money take priority over God? Am I right? I worked a dead-end, minimum wage, fast food job, long hours, crap pay. I would do open shift. The sun wouldn't even be up when I arrived, and it would be dark by the time I left. On the days off I was exhausted, and the last thing I wanted to do was haul my ass out of bed the next day at 6 a.m., and drive 20 minutes to go to church. Within a few months I just stopped going to church. The atmosphere was fake. It basically only consisted of his massive family in a cult-like fashion. There was even a rule: do not tell any newcomers that we are all related, okay? It freaks people out as people would ask me if I knew anyone, and I would say, oh yes, of course. That's my brother and sister-in-law, those are all my nieces, oh yeah, and over there is my cousins-in-law, this is my mother and father-in-law. They could all see how bonded we were as a family. No wonder they would run for the hills. Eventually my father-in-law confronted me about my absence within the church. He told me in an extremely stern voice that if I was to be a part of this family that I was required to attend church unless I was violently ill. I had told him our circumstances, but he didn't care. He simply told me to change my shifts, and put down in the books that I under no circumstances was available on Sundays due to religious commitments. I unwillingly agreed to do so from now on. As time passed over the next several years, I feel my presence was unnoticed. I felt almost invisible when I was doing my duties as a submissive Christian wife within the church. But as soon as I stepped a foot out of line, all hell broke loose. I was juggling my job as well as the church, but it still felt unbalanced. The more I stayed, the more I realized that my values and morals as a person did not line up with these people. I'm LGBT friendly as I am bisexual myself. I'm tolerant of other people's religion. These people were not. The things they would say that they would do to their own young children if they were gay would churn your stomach. My ultimate decision and realization after all these years of being a Christian was that in fact, I was an atheist, and this path would get me nowhere. So, I laid low for a while. My presence did not go unnoticed. I contacted my sister-in-law to go for a coffee date because I had something I would like to speak to her about. Cue the day of our meeting. I told her everything, my thoughts, feelings, and my decision to leave the church, although respected my husband's decision to stay and attend on weekends without me. She smiled at me and placed her hand over mine and said, "Oh honey, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. I get it, you're stressed, but don't go making such rash decisions, okay? Things will be okay. I'll pray for you." I was deeply enraged that I was being spoken to like a child, that she wouldn't respect my decision, and she acted like I was full of crap, and someone spoke on behalf of me, that I didn't actually want to do what I was doing. News within the family spread like wildfire, although they never really made a conscious effort to try and make me stay. My father-in-law flat out told me that I was going to burn in hell for all eternity, so that was lovely. But I expected it, and knew my actions would result in this due to their own personal religious beliefs. What I did not expect is that they couldn't separate the family from the church. The church was the family. Slowly, but surely I wasn't being invited to birthdays, Easters, family game nights or Christmas get-togethers. It broke my heart. For years I had worked my ass off for this family to be approved and accepted by devoting everything I had into the church. Eventually I had to accept this, that they would no longer consider me a part of the family since I wasn't associated with the church. Come the day before Christmas Eve, the church was holding its annual Christmas community dinner. Tons of food, music, prizes, events for the kids, decorations. It was amazing. Every year before this one I was warmly invited to help. Any help was wanted with such a huge event. I had time off, so I messaged my cousin-in-law if it was okay for me to come over and give a helping hand. She said of course, any help was welcome, and she would be happy to have me. So, early morning I headed over. The vibe was cheerful, everyone was having fun, but working hard. In total I believe I put up around 6 massive Christmas trees and decorations. As the day went on, I was tired and tried to leave, but was always met with, "Oh, that's cute. Sorry, but we really need help with putting up this tent. Just keep helping us." Before I knew it, I was sunburned, heat exhausted, and I had been there a total of 9 stinking hours helping them prepare for this event. Once everything was set up I had a chance to sit down with my cousin-in-law and chat. I had suggested to her that in previous years I volunteered as a face painter for this event for free for the kids, and I would be more than happy to do it again. She took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes with a deep irritable sigh. "Look, This is a Christian event. You aren't Christian. We can't have you here having that sort of mentality and views around potential newcomers at this event." I awkwardly replied, "Well, yeah. But I'll be face painting children. I'm not going to go around telling people I'm an atheist. I'm sure most of the public community who are coming tonight aren't Christian either, so why is that an issue?" She hissed. "It doesn't matter. Your kind aren't welcome here." I stood up, walked off before screaming, and pointing to everything around me that was decorated. "If you didn't want me here, then why let me do all of this for you?" and stormed off. After that day I was completely disowned from his family, and that took a massive toll on my husband. I'm not saying it was the main reason for us divorcing, but it was definitely a huge part of it. My toxic mother-in-law. I'll call favoritism Fanny. For a little backstory, my husband and I have a 10-year-old son from my previous marriage, and a daughter together that just turned 1. My husband's brother has a daughter that is almost 3, and she is the golden grandchild. I'll call her Perfect Patty. I adore Perfect Patty, and she's a sweetheart, but spoiled rotten to the core. From the beginning, favoritism Fanny didn't seem super excited about my pregnancy, but helped a bit here and there with a few things, and helped decorate for my shower, etc. The day my daughter was born she didn't even come to the hospital, but came a day or so later to see her. Her husband, Demon Dave, which is my husband's stepfather, and stepdad to both my husband's brother, never bothered to come to the hospital at all. I didn't think too much of this at the time. We ended up having to drive over an hour with a month-old baby so Demon Dave and brother-in-law's family could meet her. Demon Dave and favoritism Fanny are over the moon with Perfect Patty, and have been from the start, which let me say is totally fine with me. They are grandparents, and that's how it should be. By the time my daughter was 7 months old, favoritism Fanny had come to the house a couple times, and watched my daughter, and when I had surgery she came to help me out for a few days during that week, which I appreciated very much. Demon Dave came with her once. During all this time I had started to notice that neither favoritism Fanny or Demon Dave announced her birth or had posted any pictures of my daughter on social media, but constantly posted pictures of Perfect Patty. I became a little upset with that, and it made me start to examine other things. So as I'm seeing them post pictures with captions, like "my angel," blah blah etc. of Perfect Patty, and waiting on them to just bother to say anything about my daughter, I start getting more and more angry, and I decided to talk with my husband. He decided to have a talk with his mom, and the excuse that was given was, well, she's not at a fun age like Perfect Patty, and that I never sent pictures to Demon Dave. Okay? I constantly sent pictures to favoritism Fanny. That made zero sense as to why they never announced her birth like they did Perfect Patty or anything similar. After the talk, Demon Dave started sharing pics of Perfect Patty off sister-in-law's Facebook, which he could have easily done from mine or my husband's. So because it was really starting to make me mad, I unfriended him. He then decided to post a couple pictures of my daughter. This past Christmas, we went to their house along with brother-in-law and sister-in-law and Perfect Patty. It was nice until presents were opened. I should also note the attention was on Perfect Patty the entire time, and comments kept being made about things being bought for Perfect Patty, and things she liked etc. Favoritism Fanny spilled the details about how much she had bought and done for her, which kind of floored me because almost nothing had been bought or done for my daughter. Demon Dave kept making comments to me saying things like, "Grandpa is going to buy Perfect Patty a karaoke machine when he goes back to the store because she deserves it," and just things like that. I go to use the bathroom, which is an earshot of the living room, and my daughter and Perfect Patty are on her lap. I hear Demon Dave say, "Perfect Patty is our girl, isn't she? She's so perfect. No one will ever change that." Definitely upset me. Fast forward, and they never reach out to see her, but one time, and still posting nothing but Perfect Patty, and react to 0 pictures of my daughter, which I make sure to tag my husband in so they see everyone. My daughter's first birthday comes around, and they are here for her party. Demon Dave doesn't interact with my daughter at all, and during opening of the presents, favoritism Fanny talks the entire time with sister-in-law about all the things she had bought Perfect Patty, and shared that all the clothes she bought my daughter she bought doubles for her, which is fine. But my issue is during the year they make it known that they buy so many toys and clothes for her, yet absolutely nothing for my daughter. And for a little push cart that my daughter got, they stopped everything to take it from her to check where it was from so they could buy Perfect Patty one. Also, anything my daughter got, Demon Dave made loud announcements like, "Patty, Grandpa will buy you one, don't worry," etc. Let me make sure to get across that I love Perfect Patty and want her to have attention and gifts, etc. I even bought her something to open at my daughter's party. I'm just disgusted at the blatant favoritism. I just want it equal. I hope I have gotten across just how bad it is. But I just want it to be equal. I want them to love my daughter, and want them to want to see her, and spend time with her. It's so bad. I know as she gets older she's going to want to know why Grandma and Grandpa don't love her as much as Perfect Patty, and that's not okay, and I won't let that happen. My husband just tells me not to worry about it. But I try to make him understand how much it will affect her as she's older. I don't know what to do because I don't feel like I should have to beg them to love our daughter. Frown. Abusive mother-in-law tried to abduct my child while he was trick-or-treating tonight. We have been no contact with my bat-crap crazy abusive mother-in-law since August of last year when she slapped our child for saying no to her, and then went on a crusade to destroy our lives for standing up to her. We moved several months ago, and had no idea that she had found us. Tonight while I was taking my 6-year-old child trick-or-treating, she ambushed us, and tried to get my son to get into her car. Thankfully I was with friends, and neighbors, and my other just yes mother-in-law, and they are able to take my kid down the street while I intercepted abusive mother-in-law, and called the police. Afterwards my neighbors told me they've seen her truck casing our house the past few days, and thought it was suspicious because it kept driving by slowly, and staring at our home. Last night I swore I saw a flashlight in my backyard, but looked out the window, and on our cameras, and didn't see anything so thought I was just being paranoid. The police came, and abusive mother-in-law, and her insane husband fled. The police took my statement, and that of witnesses. All this went down in front of many of my neighbors. I was standing in the middle of the street crying, and talking to police. My child is traumatized, and terrified, and wants to know how she found us, and why she won't leave us alone. He's too scared to sleep alone. I'm so angry, and hurt, and scared. What the F is wrong with a woman? What could she have possibly been thinking? Why won't she just leave us alone? We just moved into this house. Our child loves his school. We are making friends. I don't want to live in terror because of her. It's been a very emotional and draining last 24 hours. I can't comment on the legal actions being taken right now, but the police are taking this seriously and we feel immensely grateful for their work. I have hired an attorney and am pursuing a criminal protection order. I also beefed up the security system on my home today and will be installing outdoor motion detector lights this weekend. We already have a kick-ass network of cameras and an alarm. That was the very first thing we did when we moved into this house because we knew this day was coming. We didn't think it would be so soon though. We do have a dog already. She never barks though. She is a very good girl with terrible gas and lots of slobber who is great at cuddles and not great at guard dogging. We really can't get another dog though because we found out our son is allergic. No way we're going to get rid of our pooch, but we really can't get another. I'm definitely going to get little man into karate. He is excited about the idea and I think it will be good for him. I'm also trying to find a therapist for him. No luck in that department today, but at least I got most of the legal things rolling. I know it's harsh and I feel bad for my wife, but I really hope her mom goes to jail for a long time. DS said he hopes she goes to jail forever. He's 6 so he doesn't really understand what that means, but it serves her right to have her grandson hate her so much after everything she's put him through. My neighbors have really rallied for us and that has been an amazing experience. Abusive mother-in-law trying to abduct a child while all the families were trick-or-treating sure brought a lot of awareness to our situation and we've received a lot of support so far and vows to watch out for her. I didn't get any sleep last night at all and have been crying on and off all night and day, so at least I look like a Halloween decoration today. Good times. Mother-in-law told my fiancé I'm cheating on him with his female cousin and my half-sister. I'm so tired of her. I'm bi, but I'm in love with my male fiancé. My mother-in-law, having known about the bi thing since before we got together, is convinced I'll cheat on him with a woman, despite us being together for 3 years and me not so much as looking at another person in this time. About a month ago I met his cousin, a straight woman with a boyfriend, and you know when you meet someone, and you immediately know you'll be friends? It was like that. We've seen each other twice since the initial meeting, one with fiancé there, and then the other day when we went shopping, and got coffee without him. She took a picture of the two of us sat on opposite sides of a table at Starbucks, posted it on the Book of Faces, and tagged me. We were sitting opposite each other, weren't touching, we weren't even looking at each other in the picture. Tonight my fiancé then shows me a message from his mother. Honey, I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you have a right to know. My name has been unfaithful, and has betrayed you in the worst of ways. If you need me I'm here. Then she sent the photo of me, and the cousin. She tried to tell my fiancé that I am cheating on him with his straight, committed, female cousin. He replied with 3 cry-laughing emojis, and a reminder that the woman was his cousin, on his father's side, parents divorced so she might genuinely not have known. Instead of bowing out graciously with what little was left of her dignity, she then doubled down, saying I didn't want to have to do this, but here, and then sent him a photo of me with an older blonde woman who she has never met. This woman was, drumroll please, my half-sister. My fiancé thinks this is the funniest thing in the world and I have to agree. Not the first time she's done something like this, but definitely the funniest. Fiancé says jury's out on whether he's inviting her to the wedding or not because like I said this isn't the first time she's done something like this. For wondering how she got the photos, when cousin and I were at Starbucks, cousin posted the photo of us on FB, and tagged me, and the week before that when I was with my sister I posted the picture. She seems to have just pulled her evidence off Facebook. I rearranged mother-in-law's furniture. We've been married a long time, a really long time. Mother-in-law was mostly irritating with a little just no and I've been low to no contact for probably the last 10 years, and my life has been divine because of that. Dear husband doesn't mind because he gets lots of romance when his ma isn't interfering in our relationship. But way back, I tried so hard to get on her good side. I was such a sweet summer child. I thought to myself she should be happy for dear husband. I cooked, and cleaned, and threw parties, and most people liked me, but she was sly, so dear husband didn't catch the nuances of her behavior. I tried to point it out, with little luck, because I had no experience with a woman like this. We left for our honeymoon a week after our wedding, enough time for us to set up our small apartment, and get cozy living together beforehand. We left for a week with the keys left to mother-in-law to fetch our mail, and various things. When we got back she had completely rearranged my kitchen, the living room, threw out some of my pictures, and knickknacks from our bedroom, and I swear she also tossed some of my lingerie. I was upset, so upset, and cried to dear husband. He, angry at his mom, talked to her then came home with the usual. Can you guess it? She can't imagine why I'd be upset. She was obviously being so helpful. She didn't mean to do anything wrong, and the tears came at her bidding so that dear husband was thrown for a loop. Never having experienced woman-to-woman territorial stomps, he came home spewing her diatribe, and simply told me that he would help me put things back. And he did, except for the kitchen. He only made things worse in there. But not for lack of trying. Mother-in-law never even taught him to butter bread. Sigh. But, I learned a valuable lesson. Whenever mother-in-law was up to her shenanigans, she would wait until we were alone, look at me, and do this evil smile with a nod, sort of like those subgifts, to acknowledge her disdain to me properly. I learned from the best, the very best. Mother-in-law was the town pillar, active in church and charity, and so sweet to the people she approved of. So, here is the meat of this post. Mother-in-law is old now, and still just as sneaky. If anything, old age has sharpened her skills, and she has taken on the role of helpless old lady quite fabulously. There are volunteers who help her, and bring her meals, sit, and read with her. It's all quite nice, really. She did a week-long stint in the hospital, recently, and dear husband got the key to her house to retrieve her mail, etc. etc. Well, I made a copy of said key, without dear husband knowing. Of course, because I had a plan. During that week, I took some time off work. I was so sick, don't you know, and let myself into her house to rearrange, clean her kitchen. I also threw away some broken porcelain, and other items. They weren't necessary, took pictures off the walls, and put them in the closet. Then I rearranged the linen closet, the coat closet, mother-in-law's closet, and her bathrooms, both of them. I left the living room mostly alone, sadly, but I didn't want dear husband to catch on. See. Then, on the day dear husband was supposed to pick her up from the hospital, and bring her home, I offered to help dear husband clean her house for her homecoming. He was mildly surprised at my offer, but I said I've decided to let bygones be bygones. I will help, then get out of the way so dear husband could help mother-in-law get settled in. She can mostly live by herself, with a little help every day from a certified nurse assistant, and hubs to check in on her. So we cleaned, mopped, and vacuumed. Got everything sparkly, and clean. I went with dear husband to fetch his mom, and sat in the back seat. When we arrived, mother-in-law immediately noticed things were askew, but she couldn't tell what it was yet. Then she noticed the missing pictures. Mother-in-law, what did you do with my pictures? Dear husband and me. What do you mean? Mother-in-law, you stole my pictures. Me? Oh my, no mother-in-law, I helped dear husband clean, and that's all. Dear husband confirmed that is all I did. I asked if she'd like some tea, and she yelled at me to stay out of her kitchen. She went in herself, and screamed what had we done? I looked at dear husband all puzzled, and dear husband repeats that he and I only cleaned the counters, and dishes, and mopped. Mother-in-law was livid, so I told dear husband that my presence must be upsetting to her so maybe I should leave. Dear husband, confused because he had no idea why his mom was acting so outwardly hostile to me, agreed. So I cheerfully told mother-in-law that I'd be on my way, and dear husband could call me when he's ready to be picked up. That's all dear husband heard. He didn't see me smile at mother-in-law because he was facing my back. And you all, I nodded at her with her very own signature nod. She was livid. Dear husband told me on the way home, when I went to pick him up a few hours later, that she had accused me of all sorts of things, and that's when I said the poor dear's mind must be going. He agrees. The poor thing is getting so old. After all, she should have been nicer to me. I get to help pick her nursing home, and I know very well how to play the helpful supportive role. Thanks, mother-in-law. Why weren't you home? So dear husband got a hysterical call from mother-in-law that she was about to break our front door to save our son because I wasn't home, and had left the toddler alone. Understandably this scared dear husband crapless because I never go anywhere, much less without my child. I am also pregnant, and have a heart condition, so his thought was I had collapsed. He calls me, and I answer as always, "What's up, yo?" Then I realized his voice was shaking, so my thought is something happened to a niece or nephew. Oh God, what's wrong? Mom said she's been beating on the door for 10 minutes, and can hear dear son screaming. Where are you? Sitting on the front porch like I always do to answer a call so I don't wake him up. Have you heard anyone knock today? No, I've just been in the kitchen mostly. Dogs haven't even left the porch. Does she remember which house we live at? He said he'd figure this all out. Asked her to send a picture of the house she was at. Now, we live in farm country. Most driveways here are several hundred yards long, like ours. Our dogs don't go bonkers at the mail/traffic/etc. because the road is so far past their territory. He sent me a very blurry, very dark picture of the yard and house, like it was a drive-by. Also, our car was parked out front, so dear husband was home. Oh, and you can see our Christmas tree lights. So basically she snapped a picture the one night, in December, she was allowed to visit. Meanwhile she is insisting dear son is in danger, that I am negligent and she should take the babies for their safety. Dear husband called her apartment manager, who called the cops for a wellness check. This is so far beyond her normal bonkers, we're kind of puzzled. Then, later, dear husband got home doing his temple rubbing because this is so crazy. His father-in-law called him on his way home shrieking about us calling the cops, and trying to have her arrested just because she called to chat. So the version he was told is she called dear husband just to chit-chat through lunch, and thought they had a pleasant visit until a bunch of aggressive cops came, and beat on the door, demanding entry. Her apartment manager was desperately trying to stop them, in tears, but they threatened her. So dear husband called to have her arrested for calling him. Meanwhile, the police department had called dear husband pretty much right after lunch to tell him, she is very much mentally fine, there's no signs of issues, mental or health-wise according to the EMTs. Dear husband was relieved, but the cop added, she tried getting us on her side, saying she just misses you all, and wants a relationship with you. Seemed like every other older woman who can't accept that her kids are adults, but then she started asking what she needed to do so she could take custody of your son, an unborn baby, because she couldn't trust that she would be allowed to see them. I told her about what CPS needs, how she has to qualify, all the huge obstacles in the way of that. Dear husband said they explained, and explained, and explained, but she just got an angry expression, and said something to the effect of, well, I will just have to find another way then. I want those babies. Cop warned dear husband, this is not enough for a restraining order, but don't let your wife go anywhere alone with your son, and if she doesn't already, get her a gun. My professional advice is keep your mother where you can see her. This is the kind of thing that becomes violent when nobody watches. So she's fine, just her garden variety bad crap. My mother called the police on my husband because of an inside joke. Darling husband and I have really weird senses of humor that complement each other well, but make next to no sense to anyone else. I am a teacher at a sixth form college, 16 to 18-year-olds, and my husband co-owns a business which consists mainly of publicity. Part of this work usually involves organizing launch parties, fundraisers, and whatever other reasons for people to get dressed up, and all be in a room together. When these things happen he is often invited and I come along as his date. He usually has a full suit, grooms his hair, both facial, and on top of his head, and I'm full on heels, dress, makeup. We both get dressed up, and he'll point out that's so-and-so. We're trying to get them to agree to something, at which point I'll introduce myself to so-and-so, and their date, and give dear husband a reason to talk to them. Dear husband has closed several deals during these conversations. He jokes that I'm his good luck charm. I joke that I'm his arm candy. We plan on having kids in the near future, and have agreed that when we do have kids I'm going to take a year or two off work to be with our child. Because of this we have agreed to hold off on kids until we have enough money in the bank that me not working won't be an issue financially. I am also very shy, and introverted versus his charming, and outgoing personality, and I frequently joke that once the baby comes I'm only leaving the house to buy nappies, and go to his work events. Today I was having lunch with my mother. I see her once every 3 to 4 months, with dear husband, because he is black and I am white, and my mother, while not openly stating it, is racist. I would have cut contact a while back, but I have a grandmother, younger half-sibling, and 2 nieces who I don't want to lose touch with, and all of them live with mom, and aren't allowed phones, so seeing her one-on-one gets me access to the 4 of them. After extensive conversations, dear husband has said that the best option is probably for me to stay in touch, but leave him out of it. Dear husband gets paid on Wednesdays, makes a deposit straight into the baby fund, and then screenshots the transfer, and sends it to me. He usually attaches some silly message to make me laugh, and today his message was, "Babe, we're so close to being a MILF, and DILF, it's unreal." I replied, "Can't wait to only have to leave the house for your work stuff." I'll be the first to admit, the jokes are really stupid, but we think they're funny, and with our shared and somewhat excessive uses of cry-laughing emojis, anyone looking at these texts who knows us would realize we were both joking. At some point during lunch I had to go to the bathroom, and my dumb self left my purse at the table with my mother, assuming she could be trusted. I was stupid to think that. I am also an idiot for setting my PIN on my phone as my own birthday. Lunch was fine, just as usual, but towards the end mom sort of grabbed my hand, and went, "Are you doing okay, you and dear husband?" I said things were going really well, updated her on the baby stuff, told her about our last date night. She nods, and leaves it at that. I figure everything is normal. I go to work, a few hours go by, and after I let the students go, and am about to head home for the day, I see some missed calls from a private number, and a few more from dear husband. A policeman came to his place of work asking to speak to him. He had been reported for spousal abuse. He answered some questions for them, and they left eventually, but said something about following up, guessing that's who the private caller was, although I am very concerned that as far as they were aware they talked to the abuser before the person being abused. Told mom about it, and she starts to act shady. I didn't suspect her before the conversation, but I sure as crap do now. Ask her directly what she knows. She replies that she went through my texts when I was in the bathroom, and saw that dear husband wasn't going to let you leave the house once you had the baby. I informed her that was a joke that I made. She then said that because dear husband didn't object, he didn't even reply. That was indicative of him seriously agreeing that I shouldn't leave the house once the baby is born. I corrected her again, and she says that as far as she is concerned she did everything right. I told her not to contact me, I'll contact her when I'm ready, and hung up. I know she probably thought she was doing the right thing if she genuinely believed I was being abused, but I don't believe she actually did believe that, and she didn't actually ask me, didn't check with me, went straight to police, and could have really messed things up with dear husband's work as he's struggling to explain this to his employees. He can't just say to them I was falsely accused of spousal abuse, no big deal lol. I feel like we're at restraining order stages, but she has no prior history of being a just no, and I don't know if I have enough to go off. I called the number on the card that the police officer left, and left a voicemail saying I am free to talk whenever. I'll be calling a lawyer later today, but just from my initial research it looks like there's not enough here for a restraining order, as mom doesn't like texting, and will only ever talk in person or over the phone. I know I have to do something, and put my foot down, and I can't trust her around mine, and dear husband's future child, but I have no clue what to do or how to begin. For people wondering about the family members I mentioned, my half-brother is 10. My nieces are 8 and 11. None of them are allowed phones before they turn 16. My sister, niece's mother, lives with mom, is fully on board with the phone thing, and one time when I showed my half-brother something on my phone she screamed bloody murder at me about him not being allowed a phone. Could try to get something to Nan, but she's in her late 80s, and has sight issues, so a phone isn't exactly easy for her to use. Also, since I was informed the police officer's actions were weird, I looked up the officer I spoke to. He's my stepfather's brother-in-law. Mom must have called him. That woman is insane. Toxic mother tried to set me up with the waiter while my girlfriend was sat next to me. DW, controlling behavior. I am a 28-year-old lesbian. I came out at 16, so mom has been aware of the lesbian part for a little under half my life. I had dinner with her yesterday to introduce her, and my brother to my girlfriend of a year. Our waiter was a boy who was clearly in his late teens, I'd say 20 at absolute oldest, but realistically this boy was 16 to 19 years old. When he poured us all water, he took maybe a couple of seconds longer to pour mine than he did others, and when he came to check on us he usually ended up stood near me or looking at me, as we were in a booth and I was on the outside, and therefore closest to him. Mom took this as her cue to tell this teenage boy, in front of my girlfriend, that my 28-year-old lesbian self was available. The waiter looked really uncomfortable and I just held my girlfriend's hand tighter while saying that I am not available, not because I thought the waiter would actually use the information, but more to remind my mom. The first waiter probably asked to switch with someone as we didn't see him again after that, and another guy, at least closer to me in age, took over our table. Mom then tried the exact same thing with him, and when I again reminded her that I am not available, she told me that you should keep your options open. Towards the end of the meal I excused myself for the bathroom, and my girlfriend came with me. We should not have left Mom at the table. We came back, Mom asked if we were good to go, and we all left. My brother grabbed my hand, and pulled me into a hug, and as he did that he, secret agent style, slipped the receipt into my hand. When we got into the car I looked at the receipt, and Mom had written "Call me XXX" along with my phone number, clearly intending on leaving it behind for any male waiter who would take it. My brother is 14, and Mom is on the controlling side. I never got a lot of it, but my brother is her baby, so he's not allowed a phone or a bank account, and she said he's not allowed to get a job until he finishes his education, which includes if he goes to university. If he does go to university, he'll be expected to live with Mom, and commute, even though the closest university is an hour, and 2 trains away. I need to stay in touch with my brother. I can't leave him with her. Dad ducked out after I moved out, so it's just Mom, and my brother in the family home. Mom is my only method of communication with my brother. I tried giving him a small, basic, pay-as-you-go phone meant mainly for texting, but Mom found it. He has a laptop, but she goes through his browser history, and put in some sort of child lock which stops him from going on certain sites, even incognito mode. He has a Facebook account he can access at school or the library, but school is 8 to 3 weekdays, and the library is 8 to 6 Monday to Saturday, so there's a lot of hours where he has no way to contact me. If this were just about me I'd have cut contact with Mom years ago, but I have to consider my brother, too. My girlfriend says that she supports whatever I want to do in regards to the whole situation, and he's welcome in the spare room anytime. Mom disrespected me, my girlfriend, our relationship, my sexuality, and nearly got me put on the sex offender register list all in the span of a couple hours. I can't just let it slide, but I can't go full no contact, or even low contact, as the only time I get to see my brother is at these dinners, which are once every 2 weeks. What do I do? Future dear husband, and future mother-in-law want me to stop working now that I'm pregnant. I'm 4 months along. I've talked to my workplace and I've confirmed my maternity leave, which will be 6 weeks of actual fully paid leave, and another 6 of working from home, which is a lot more than I anticipated getting, and I'm honestly over the moon about it. My mother, just yes, will be retiring about a month before my maternity leave ends, and my boyfriend works 4 days a week, with Saturday to Monday off. When I go back to work, I will also be looking into adjusting my hours. I'm on salary, to either get shorter days or to work 3 or 4 longer days as opposed to 5 regular ones. The plan for childcare, to my knowledge, was that I would have 12 weeks of being at home with the baby full time. After those 12 weeks were up, my boyfriend and my mom would take turns watching the baby when I was at work. We had dinner with my boyfriend's parents last night. His father, who I think is great, asked me about maternity leave. Before I could reply, the mother asked why I would need maternity leave. Boyfriend looks guilty immediately. I ask why she thought I wouldn't need maternity leave. She says someone should be at home. I then turned to my boyfriend and asked when he was planning on quitting. The mom was glaring at me, and he was obviously pissed off. I assumed he was pissed off at his mother for implying I should stop working, but turns out he's annoyed at me for shutting her down without hearing her out. My argument is that this is dumb. I make more money than he does. I have the ability to work remotely, and it's not the 1950s. His argument is that if we want to spend the first year or so with family watching the baby, and not nurseries, then I need to make some compromises. I cannot believe he's hidden these views from me for the 18+ months we've been together. My mind is running a mile a minute and I'm sure I'm working myself up more than I need to be, but 10 different alarm bells are going off for me right now and I don't know what to do. Has anyone else been in a similar situation? How can I communicate that no way am I quitting without adding fuel to the fire? Mother-in-law gave me face herpes while I was in labor. I had my daughter this past Monday. I went into labor early Sunday morning, and didn't have her until 5 p.m. Monday via C-section. My mother-in-law came to visit while I was in labor waiting to dilate some more. I was against it at first, but after the pain meds kicked in I didn't care anymore. She ended up leaving because it was late, and she can't drive in the dark. She was super bummed, and didn't want to miss the birth. I didn't want her to be there in the first place. She kissed me goodbye, and left. Monday she did the same. Visited, and tried waiting out to stay for the C-section, but it got too late, and she had to leave. Another kiss was planted. When I got into recovery, I noticed my face was super itchy. I scratched it pretty badly around my chin, lips, and under my nose during the few times I got sleep. It had scabbed up pretty bad, so the itchiness was written off as coming off of anesthesia, and totally normal. I've been kissing my newborn, and loving on her this whole time. I got home Wednesday evening, and ended up washing my face to help with the itching, and rubbed my face and lips raw with a towel in desperation. I put Aquaphor over everything to help it heal. Thursday rolls around and I notice scabs on my lip. I apply more Aquaphor hoping it would heal. Today they turned into blisters, and mother-in-law came to visit. Dear husband noticed the blisters and mentioned cold sores. I told him it was for me scratching and applying Aquaphor over it. Him and mother-in-law comment on how they looked like cold sores. He finally checks them out and says never mind. Meanwhile, mother-in-law is sporting a scabbed over cold sore. We had already told her no kissing baby with cold sore. She decided to press her cheek against her face as she says bye, and kisses mine and dear husband on the cheek. We were too shocked to say anything. When she was gone, we both had a WTF realization, and decided to tell her tomorrow when she comes back. No touching without hand sanitizer, and no getting close to her face, period. Well, I noticed a few more smaller blisters pop up tonight. Dear husband confirmed, and my heart sank. I mentioned her kissing me at the hospital several times. He's not happy, and now need to keep a close eye on dear daughter because I had been kissing her forehead since she was born. No mouth or nose, just forehead. I'm so devastated, and my husband thinks I'm overreacting because cold sores are common. He has them too. Mother-in-law gave them to him. Can't be in the delivery room? Fine, I'll call the mental health team on you. I thought you'd all appreciate this story about my toxic mother and the birth of my first baby. So back in 2014 I was coming to the end of my pregnancy, and throughout the whole process I'd made it very clear that the only person I wanted at the hospital with me was my sister as my birthing partner. I thought my toxic mother was on board with this, although she would always try to make comments about "oh, we'll be there just in case you need anything." No mother. I hit 34 weeks and I'm hospitalized with preeclampsia, and bedbound trying to push this pregnancy to 36 weeks, which is technically full term. Over this period I told the midwives that under no circumstances was anyone except my sister allowed to visit me on the ward, and one of the HCAs told that my mother had been turned away multiple times within the first few days, which absolutely ruined my goal of keeping my blood pressure under control, and had my anxiety through the roof. After a few more days I hadn't heard from anyone that she'd been trying to get in. I turned my phone off this whole time to try and de-stress. My sister told me a few weeks post-birth that she'd told the staff not to tell me if my mother tried to visit because it was causing panic attacks. She's too good to me. A few days before 35 weeks they told me that if they didn't induce me my life was at risk because my blood pressure was no longer responding to medication, and kept climbing. I asked them to wait one more day. Not sensible, I know, and I discharged myself from the ward because I needed to move all my belongings from my sheltered housing flat to the mother and baby unit. I was classed as homeless at this point because of relationship breakdowns with my parents. The move was booked to happen on that day because that was a month before my due date and I was bordering on delirious, and my anxiety was telling me if I didn't move my stuff they would give the new flat away. So I got back to the place where I was living, and the staff moved my stuff for me. They aren't technically allowed, but I looked like death in the few days before my induction, and my key worker drove me straight back to the hospital, and said that staff would build my furniture and things for me. Somehow during this time my parents found out I was being induced. I told my brother, and he's as flying monkey as they come. When I got back to the ward I turned my phone on to let a few friends know that baby was imminent, and I was buried in missed calls and messages from toxic mother, the most recent saying that I had to let her onto the ward so she could take care of her first grandchild, no mention of the dying mother of said grandchild, and at that point I was scared of dying and angry, so I called her and yelled at her saying she was to come nowhere near the ward at all, and nowhere near my flat until I'm ready, and I hung up before she could reply. After that I was induced, and was in labor until the late evening, and spent the next few days very ill with infections etc. When I was in recovery I was visited by a psych liaison because they'd had a call to the ward requesting a welfare check because I'd apparently threatened to harm myself/my baby. I went little contact with them after that, and I'm now basically no contact. TLDR, I refused to let my toxic mother onto the maternity ward, and she repaid me by claiming I was a threat to my baby. Sexist father-in-law belittles daughter's achievements. My father-in-law regularly makes a great deal of sexist and chauvinist comments. What makes me upset is the frequency at which he makes these comments about my younger sister, who is a competitor. Presently, My father-in-law figures himself to be a remarkable competitor once upon a time, albeit nothing really significant. My sister is a long-distance runner, and a great one. She scores in the top 10 women of pretty much every marathon race she runs. She is my only lovable sibling, and she has a unique bond with my kids. So, possibly 3 times every year, she will run a broadcast long-distance race, and we'll watch her outrun the competition on television. While watching, it is really fun to cheer her on because my kids get really excited and start to cheer her on too. I love that my kids have her as a positive role model, and my daughter currently wants to be a great runner like her aunt. Every single time, my father-in-law will kill the mood with some snide comment like, "Yeah, she did alright, but her final time is looking kinda slow. Maybe she is just on her period? I mean, it's not horrible, but she needs to remember people are going to get faster and stay faster if she isn't at the top of her game. And if you really think about it, how much faster would a man run that race, and still perform well in terms of speed, endurance, and strength after?" I will respond, "Well, she did great relative to her competition, and I am proud of her either way." He will follow up with, "Yes, but Usain Bolt ran 100 meters in 9.58 seconds, or some similar insane comparison." He keeps acting this way in front of my kids, and I am afraid my young daughter is slowly soaking up all his nonsense. How do you handle this situation? I want to say that in general my father-in-law is pretty tolerable, but in reality I think everyone just kind of sees past his flaws because he's disabled, and a veteran. I must add that he wasn't disabled in the line of duty, he was disabled because he drove drunk, and wrapped his truck around a tree. For this reason he doesn't drink anymore, thank God, because from what I hear he was an intolerable, and dangerous drunk. This was several years ago, when my husband and I were dating. It was Christmas time, and it was my second time visiting my future dear husband's parents at their very small home. It was the duration of Christmas break, a long, and grueling 2 weeks. Why I agreed to this, I'll never know, because I was bored to tears the first time I visited them. Future dear husband ignored me, and hung with his brothers. The mom was at work, and the dad off somewhere in the shop or sleeping in his recliner. I noticed several times during this visit my husband kept getting pulled aside to various rooms or outdoors by his parents, and through the paper-thin walls I often heard my name spoken. This causes a lot of anxiety, since so far his parents had seemed pretty indifferent to me, and hadn't shown any approval or disapproval. I was already on edge with a ton of other stressors in my life, with family issues of my own, financial strain, and school stress. Finally my boyfriend took me on a walk, and told me his dad wanted to talk to me about the way I dressed because he thought it was inappropriate. I was taken aback, and very confused. I had barely spoken with a man, and being winter, I had been wearing nothing but jeans, leggings, modest, and loose-fitting sweaters, and flannels. On the weekend at church I wore a dress that my boyfriend had bought me, which led me to assume it was okay. One of the days in the week prior future dear husband, and future brother-in-law and I went to a spring to go kayaking and I wore shorts. But unless father-in-law had been spying through his shop window as I ran from the house to the truck, he wouldn't have seen me that day at all because I don't recall seeing him. It is also worth noting I had no sexual history with anyone up to this point. Future dear husband was my first boyfriend, and we hadn't even had sex yet, and I slept on the couch while he slept in his room the entire time. I was very reserved, and we didn't do any PDA at all. I argued for a minute, and asked why on earth my clothes were deemed inappropriate, and why this warranted a serious conversation. Future dear husband had no spine at this point, and wouldn't give me a straight answer, but instead led me back into the house, and had me sit on the couch. The parents sent the brothers into their rooms, and it was just father-in-law, mother-in-law at his side, future dear husband, and me. For the next hour or so I was lectured by father-in-law about how he was so disgusted, and confused as to how women these days dress, and how he didn't know me well, but he knew everything he needed to know about my character based on my clothes. How I was trying to seduce his boys, and using my body in a terrible way. How if he was a young man, he would have nothing to do with me because I'm a slut who would do nothing but tarnish his reputation by mere association. I was humiliated, and angry, and confused. He never even specified what clothes he disliked. I can only assume he thought my leggings and jeans were too tight, my dress too short. I'll never know. He also lectured me for using the word stupid, which apparently in their household was on par with 4-letter words. Speechless, I looked at my boyfriend, who had his eyes down, and did not say anything in my defense. Future mother-in-law the same. I apologized for breaking rules I was unaware of, and through my shaky voice and tears I told them I'd try to respect their rules in their house. I knew that their greatest fear that they repeated often was that they hadn't raised their boys right, so I hoped that if I poked at that, Maybe it would trigger a guilty response? I said I thought they raised their boys well enough to not associate with sluts or be led astray by indecent clothes. This reduced future mother-in-law to tears, and future father-in-law looked at her, then my tear-streaked face, then at future dear husband, shook his head, and said, "Women," before leaving the room. I bided my time in their home quietly, and in baggy sweatpants until I got home. I broke up with my boyfriend immediately, and for several months until he finally apologized, and promised he would stand up for me should anything like that ever happen again. Spoiler alert, this happened again other times with some of his mean friends, but at least not with his dad. I could go on about how he berated his wife for crying when their youngest son tried to commit suicide, but I'll save that for another day. I think he's a sexist, mean man. Do not be a Percy. My in-laws are staying with us for a week. They're great, we love them, but lately my father-in-law, Percy, has been difficult. Percy has a host of health problems, so I try to be as accommodating as possible, cooking healthy, delicious meals, keeping the house quiet when he is napping, etc. Percy has been through a lot, but he says and does things that have been upsetting me and my significant other. For example, Percy has a hard time maintaining a regular sleep schedule. He gets tired around 8, and then wakes up around 11 p.m., then sits in front of the TV, and falls asleep on the couch at 2 a.m., with the TV still on. When he turns on the TV, it is so loud it wakes me and my significant other. We've reminded him more than twice that our bed is on the other side of the wall, but he insists on keeping the volume up because he hates subtitles. Percy suffers from hot flashes, and is sensitive to heat. My significant other and I live in an area where electricity is expensive, but we bit the bullet so we could run the AC all day to maintain 78 Fahrenheit, 25 Celsius, so that Percy would be comfortable. It's on at 8 a.m. until we turn it off at 9 p.m., when it's cooler outside, and we can just open the windows. We have told Percy about opening the windows, and he knows how expensive it is to run the AC. He turns it on anyway when he goes into the living room for his 11 p.m. TV session. It gets down to 65 Fahrenheit, 18 Celsius, overnight, but he insists on circulating air. He doesn't even close the windows, so we're just wasting money on an additional 9 hours of pointless AC. Percy is a self-described foodie, and is a very good cook. The only problem is that he can be a bit of a snob. I tend to use very simple ingredients, but Percy is the kind of guy who takes pride in using expensive ingredients, like truffle oil. I use iodized table salt for my cooking. Percy decided to treat us by making us dinner, and he was rummaging in my spice cabinet, and found a packet of expensive pink Himalayan salt that I was saving for special occasions. He ripped the bag open, and said finally, "Some good salt." None of that iodized crap. He then put his hands, which were wet with raw pork, into the bag to grab a pinch. I know salt kills bacteria, but now the salt has clumps of pork juice in it. Our cat is very annoyingly vocal when he wants attention. We have been training our cat not to yowl for attention, but Percy thinks it's fun to talk to our cat. So our cat will go to Percy for attention, and they yowl at each other. Even my mother-in-law was like, "Percy, stop egging on the cat, it's getting annoying." But no, Percy doesn't give a crap. During Percy's midnight TV time, they can be heard yowling at each other over the blare of the TV. So yeah, the past 3 days have been just great. I've been sleeping less than 4 hours a day, while still being expected to make and plan all the meals, on top of my daily chores, while constantly entertaining my in-laws. 5 days to go and it is getting worse. Before that, I feel that I should clarify a few things. Add info. We don't take or keep the cat in the bedroom with us because his food, water, and litter are in the kitchen and laundry area. Plus he hates being holed up in a room, and would yowl at us until we open the door anyway. We kept the AC at 78 because it's what Percy specifically requested. It's cool enough for him, but not too cold for mother-in-law. She gets cold very easily. The thing is he wants it on all day, literally 24 hours a day. Percy chews tobacco. This is one of the things I forgot to mention. I'll get into it more later. Percy makes a lot of stereotyping and racist comments, and it's been getting worse. I am Asian, specifically Korean. He has made a lot of Asian jokes, most of which I just shrug off. "You're Chinese? What does ching chong mean?" Like, 70% of our interactions are his racist jokes, and I'm getting tired of tolerating it. It's my belief that if you're the type of person that relies on stereotypes and racism to carry conversation, you're a boring, shallow person. Anyway, more about Percy's worst behavior. Fast forward to just less than a week later, and the in-laws are leaving tomorrow. Here are a few highlights from the past 4 days. We went on a few really long day trips. One day trip was at a famous city, and another to a state park. Each of the day trips required 4 or more hours of driving, round trip, Percy doesn't like sitting for long periods of time, and gets very grouchy. He spent the rides criticizing my significant other's driving, the way our car handled the roads, basically, etc. He also left a few tobacco spit bottles in the car to get ripe, as well as tobacco flakes all over his seat. We decided to visit the famous city's Chinatown. Percy didn't want to go because he was worried that there would be too many Filipinos. Apparently, when he had visited the Chinatown in Manila, there were Filipinos everywhere. It was dangerous. Manila is in the Philippines, so I'm not sure what he was expecting. The famous city's Chinatown was more to Percy's liking. Not too many Filipinos, you look like you fit right in, OP. At the state park, we stopped by a counter-service cafeteria-type cafe, where you order and get food in one area, and pay at a separate register. When we arrived, there was only one line, and you could pay at the same place as the coffee station. It got busier, and they had the paying and finished customers move to the end register so they could just get coffee orders. Percy threw a fit. We were next. You are going to make us move all the way over there? We've been waiting this whole time, and now you're moving us? My significant other had to calm him down. Significant other had looked at the weather forecast, and it said it was going to be cold or rainy at the state park. Percy decided to wear jeans, rather than shorts. The entrance to the state park was a bit warmer than forecast, so Percy was complaining that he shouldn't have listened to my significant other, and just worn shorts. I suggested that Percy could roll up, and he got upset that I would even suggest that. I'm not gay. It's okay for gay guys, and women to roll up their pants, but not men like me. It was much colder later, so Percy shut up. Percy eats at the couch, leaving crumbs, and bits of food. Even though we have a dining room that is directly facing the TV, he just has to be right in front of the TV. Percy leaves tobacco flecks everywhere, the living room, the car, in the carpet. We have to discreetly vacuum or else he's like, I know I'm making a mess, and gets dramatic about how he's trying to be as clean as possible. He has a spit cup that I gave him, specifically to use, but no, he also wants to use the pretty cup my sisters gave me. So he has two spit cups, and also likes to spit in the kitchen sink, so tobacco goo all over that too. Percy likes to help with the dishes. All he does is rinse them, and put them in the dishwasher, but doesn't run it. It's usually not a full load, maybe half. I'm not going to wait 1.5 hours for the dishwasher to run a cycle on a half load of dishes. I end up having to pull all the dishes out to wash them by hand, because it's either that, or I wait for the dishwasher to be full, and then wait 1.5 hours for the dishes to run a cycle. I've told Percy that the dishwasher is old, and very slow, and that I will do the dishes, but he insists. More work for me, I guess. Percy's racist and stereotyping comments are becoming more common, and grosser. I was sitting next to my significant other, watching him playing a video game. I had cut up some fruit, and was sharing it with so I would eat a slice, and feed my significant other a slice. Percy said I should have married a Korean lady. German women don't do that. My mother-in-law is German. He's never said it directly, but Percy often makes comments implying that I'm the desirable, submissive Asian wife. I was massaging my significant other's shoulders after a very stressful day at work, and Percy looks at mother-in-law, and says, why don't you do that? Is it because you're not Asian? I made a Korean feast, bulgogi, and all the bankin', and Percy says to my significant other, you eat like a king. Wish I married a Korean girl. It's all very cringe-inducing. Less than 24 hours left. I'm very excited to have my home back to normal soon. They got a really early flight, so that they would arrive home at a decent time. We have to leave the house at 3 a.m. and drive them an hour to the airport. As much as that's going to suck, I'll be happy to have a peaceful drive back. Also, my significant other has talked to Percy, as have I, on different occasions, mentioning that we don't like his comments. I've told him that his I wish I married a Korean girl comment make me uncomfortable. The first couple times, he apologized. Lately, he's gotten worse, and becomes defensive when confronted. Not sure what's caused him to change. I love my dear husband. Let me preface this by saying that my dad and I are in a good place now, but it's been a long and bumpy road. So my dad has always suffered from what I refer to as typical Mexican machismo bullcrap. He has always talked down to me, and my older siblings. We, the kids, have always butted heads with him growing up because we would often call him on his crap while my mom just stood there listening to the bull. And of course he was never wrong, so anyone who disagreed was an ungrateful, selfish piece of crap. Onto the story. I was 17, and hanging out with my boyfriend, a friend, and friend's boyfriend. I got into a fist fight with another girl at the mall, and we were all detained in the mall security office. My parents show up, and my dad starts telling me how stupid I am. My friend's mom comes, and starts telling her that she is never allowed to go anywhere again. I stand up, and tell my friend's mom that she didn't do anything. and is only here because we happen to be together, but that I was responsible for the whole altercation. Cue my dad telling me to shut the hell up, and not to get myself into further trouble for someone else, and that of course this was my fault. But why did I have to be so stupid, and say that to everyone? After many more insults, including where he told me that I was worthless, and no better than dirt, my then boyfriend stood up, and told my dad that he didn't have to talk to me that way. My dad just looked at him, and said, "Sit down. You can't tell me how to talk to my daughter." My boyfriend kept standing, and told him, "That may be true, but it doesn't make it right." Fast forward 5 years, and boyfriend is now dear husband. We are living in my parents' guest house. My dad and I are in the backyard in a ridiculous argument over the water hose. Here come the insults so loud the whole neighborhood can hear. My mom is just standing there listening as always. Dear husband comes out, gets between me and my dad, tells him, "I don't care what y'all are arguing about. You don't have to talk to her like that." Then my dad spits out his go-to line about how no one can tell him how he can talk to his daughter. Dear husband says, "No, but I for damn sure can tell you how you can talk to my wife." My dad just stood there dumbfounded. My mom looked like she wanted to run. It's like the world stopped and I fell in love all over again. It's been about 10 years since that incident, and things have gotten a lot better with my dad. He is still an asshole, but at least he treats me with some respect now. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later. What are some things weighing you down that you may need advice on? My sister's fiance should be mine. Please help. First off, I want to say that I love my sister. We have a great relationship, and I really don't want to upset her. She is an absolutely great person, and if I had to be anyone other than myself, I would choose her. But I am technically better than her in almost every measurable way. She knows this too, and it doesn't make her uncomfortable. She actually admires me for this. For example, she has admitted it many times that I have better physical characteristics than she does. She knows I am more attractive than her, even though while growing up, I was more on the reserved side, so she would often get more social attention and praise, while I kept to myself most of the time. I've noticed recently that she keeps implying I'm not more attractive than her. The other day, we were texting and she literally said, "Maybe I have better DNA after all." I thought it was weird, but shrugged it off as no big deal. I think she was just feeling more and more confident, which is a good thing. Then, she introduced me to some of her close college friends, and she spent a lot of the time explaining and downplaying my successes. For example, I got my biomedical engineering degree from Georgia Tech at age 20, and made principal scientist at a top biotech firm a few short years after. I am a top triathlons competitor, and I have already completed an Ironman triathlon. My sister to her friends, "Say hi to my sister guys, she's smart, funny, and I love her to death." Normally, this would be fine because we were all just kind of hanging out and being chill, except this was my first time meeting her fiancé, Liam. My sister and Liam have been dating for 4 months before he recently proposed, but this was my first time meeting him since they go to college in a different state, and I am visiting. Liam is freaking gorgeous. He is going to graduate with a degree in bioengineering. Weird. He also runs triathlons. Okay, second coincidence. My sister is in shape, but in contrast is not nearly as active and plays no sports, wants to be a singer, and is going to graduate with a degree in political science. Later that night, Liam, my sister and I went out to dinner. We all had a great time and discussed things such as career goals, motivators, hobbies, etc. At this point, I found out we had way more in common than I first thought. My visit lasted 5 more days with more of the 3 of us hanging out. At the end of my visit, my sister and I had a one-on-one discussion about her engagement. Sister: "So what do you think of Liam?" Me: "He is great. I am so happy for you. You guys are cute." Sister: "Yeah, he reminds me of you sometimes lol." Me: "What do you mean?" Sister: "You guys are just really similar. So, I am glad you got to spend some time with us in person. Did you notice any red flags?" Me: "No, he genuinely seems great." Why? Is something on your mind? She took a while to respond, then responded, "Sister, I don't want to marry him." When he proposed, I felt really overwhelmed to say yes, so I did. It was in a public setting and our friends were there. I am actually pretty resentful that he put me in that situation. I am not sure what to do about this because I do care about him, but I don't think I love him the way he loves me. I don't think we can bounce back from something like this, and I am not sure that I want to. What do you think? Me: "You can't rush into a marriage because of pressure. End the engagement now, do it as soon as possible. Tonight, if you are ready." She did, and 3 days later they broke up. It has been 7 days from their breakup, and I want to pursue Liam. I think we would be perfect for each other, so I want him for myself. I love my sister, but it is just my nature to pursue the things I want with full force. My sister will forgive me for this. Here are some questions and considerations. How much time needs to pass before this is socially appropriate? What should I say to my sister to minimize how much this will hurt her in the short term? Just to be clear, I have his contact information, and I am definitely going to pursue him. This will not change. I just want more advice on how to take care of my little sister's feelings, given I have already decided to do this. Thanks. Also, this is not a Reddit post. I asked TTS Reads to post this on her channel, and she reluctantly agreed. Lol. I have been fairly warned that I may get a lot of comments about me being selfish or inconsiderate, but I still want to do this. I will be reading the video comments and providing an update later. I have been a stay-at-home dad for about 8 months, taking care of my 14-month and 3-year-old. This has been an eye-opening, a mentally and physically insightful experience. The payoff has been amazing. My kids are happy, healthy, and both are accelerated for their ages. I couldn't be prouder as a father. As a husband, I have been everything my wife could ask for, so she tells me. Her career has accelerated in ways that wouldn't be possible if she stayed home. She is very grateful, and shows me her gratitude, frequently. So everything is dandy, and whatnot, so why am I about to start complaining? Because when I take my kids to playgrounds or play spaces, literally anywhere kids play, I get excluded from conversations, specifically with other moms. I consider myself a social butterfly. I can talk to anyone about anything, hold any conversation for as long as the other person feels comfortable. When I approach mothers, and try starting a conversation, always about kids, I get shut down. My kids are always within eyesight, so it's not like I'm a rando creeper hitting on moms at parks. Just yesterday, I asked a lady how old her son is, and she said sorry, not interested. Our kids were playing together, so I thought it'd be alright if I made some small talk. That was one of many times I've been brushed off, so I tend to stay to myself or just play with my kids. Some days are very long, so having a conversation with an adult would be nice. Yes, I talk with my wife, but the nights are usually occupied by bathing the kids, feeding them, reading to them, etc. I would just like to know if there is something different that I should say or do to make other mothers/parents less uncomfortable, because that's what it feels like. I am normally the only man among 10 to 15 mothers. It doesn't help that kids love playing with me. They see me running around with my sons, and tend to join. My husband and I have reached a consensus now that we are parents. The level of toxic bullcrap previously tolerated from certain dysfunctional family members is at an all-time low. We refuse to subject our children to the chaos of certain unstable relatives just because it's the holidays, and there's this expectation that we're supposed to just suck it up and roll with it. We made a commitment to stay home on Christmas Day, and opt out of going to my mother's house, a place where on a good year, one might expect the following. 1. My mom might be only slightly drunk, and if she's having a sobriety streak, she's an anxious mess, and will have little outbursts and fits if the slightest thing goes awry. 2. My uncle, who is always stoned/drunk, swears like a sailor around children, and gives unsolicited parenting advice such as you should get her in sports. Get her in sports. Mind you, when he said this, our daughter was only 18 months old, and had only been walking for 8 months thus far. This is all coming from a man who has one illegitimate daughter from an extramarital affair years ago. The daughter is an adult now, and had no idea he is her father. Yes, please give me your advice, you sage beacon of parental wisdom. 3. My sister, gosh bless her, who is a religious nut, spends the majority of the time talking about her therapist, Jesus, and emotional problems. Yes, sis, please tell me again about your resentment towards your bio father, and how you're sick of your husband's drinking, and how speaking in tongues at church is going to solve that. This year she finally moved out, so kudos to her on that. 4. My sister's stupid ass husband, a man who, like aforementioned uncle, cannot arrive to a family function sober. He actually cavorts with said uncle to smoke weed in yard, and make multiple trips to corner store to get 12-pack after 12-pack of beer, each time returning progressively more wasted until they're both a sloppy mess before dinner is even served. This year I've firmly laid boundaries with my mom, and stated we won't be attending Christmas at her place. It is so liberating. I've said she's welcome to come over to ours during the day, just her, no uncle, or have a nice dinner or gift exchange a couple days before. We're greatly looking forward to relaxing in pajamas all day, watching the kids open presents, and not frantically shuttling 2 tiny people around town, just so they can spend their Christmas in an emotionally toxic cesspool. So fellow parents, whose extended families put the funk in dysfunctional, please share how you've successfully laid boundaries with your insane families during the holidays, or just in general. Should I not have told off my fiance's brother? Backstory on my boyfriend's brother is that I don't like him, and he doesn't like me. My family is comfortable without being wealthy while my boyfriend's family is definitely wealthy, and the brother seems to think I'm a gold digger despite my boyfriend and I splitting everything 50-50. He is the kind of person who will ask the groom on the day of his wedding if he needs a getaway driver, and tell people to get prenups at their engagement party, and I'm saying this because I've seen him do both things more than once. I'm pregnant. It's definitely ahead of schedule, but my fiancé and I are happy about it. I'm around 5 months pregnant. My fiancé proposed about 2 weeks before we found out. We told his family earlier today over Zoom. His mom, dad, and sister congratulated us, and his brother did too. But then the brother made a joke about getting a prenup, which we are doing anyway. My fiancé's sister told him to shut the F up, and the dad said come on now in a reproachful tone. And then I said just checking, are you aware there are personality traits other than dickhead and edgelord? After which my fiancé's mother told me off for speaking to her son like that because he's just looking out for his brother. I asked if I'm just meant to let him say whatever he wants, then, call ended quickly after that, and now I've had messages from my future parents-in-law and brother-in-law all expecting me to apologize in order to smooth things over. Fiancé says not to apologize for crap, and his sister says they're ridiculous, but this might be the easiest way to move on, and pointed out that I did go for him there when they'd already spoken to him. What do you all think? My dad, his girlfriend, and the future. TLDR, my dad is moving in with his long-term girlfriend, and his son. I split my time between each parent. I will be staying at his new place, and have some worries about how this new change will work out regarding my relationship with my father. I spoke to my dad about all my anxieties, and he listened, supported, and promised to keep everything I said in his mind. I am still frightened that our relationship will change slowly, but surely. Hello everyone. I came here to have a place to share my thoughts out loud. I'm called Colby and I am 14 years old. I split between living with my mother and my father. I am the only child, and my parents separated just over a year ago. I am not sure why they separated, as they decided to keep that private, but explained they no longer loved one another, but still respected each other. My father announced to me that he has moved in with his long-term girlfriend of 1 year, and her son. I will be staying there for the week as it is his turn for visitation. I have met her before, and it has been very relaxed and infrequent. After these visits became more routine, I was then introduced to her son, who is 16 years old. I like them as people, but having to live with them feels a bit different to me. The positives will be that I will have my own room, and will be allowed to decorate and buy stuff for it this week. I am pleased that my dad has found somebody he really likes, as he seems really happy. I am sure more positives will occur once I am settled there. However, I am a bit anxious about a few things, like knowing my dad will now live further away from where I live with my mother. I feel like the visits may become reduced as the travel will be longer there and back. I worry I will struggle with the travel too, and from school, as it will require 4 buses there and back a day. I worry he may think it will be easier to communicate over the internet and over the phone, etc. I did notice that when my dad and his girlfriend started dating, I seemed to hear less from him for a few months, which was a bit confusing, and I panicked this will happen again. My biggest worry is that I might struggle to settle with my dad's girlfriend and her son. If I want a meaningful relationship with my dad, then this new arrangement will have to work out regardless of whatever he feels now. I discussed my fears with my mother, who listened and comforted me, and suggested I talk to my dad before I go there. I did ring, and he reassured me fully, and I felt much better. Despite this, I still feel nervous about my stay there this week, and I feel anxious about the future, as they do seem really in love. Now I have started to realize that my parents are never getting back together, which has surprised me for some reason. I am not an anxious person in general, but this seems to be getting to me. Wish me luck, everyone. Mother-in-law got in dear daughter's bed, naked. Going to try to make this as short as possible. So toxic mother-in-law wanted to visit next month, April, so we agreed. She's been visiting all of her kids since lovable father-in-law passed away 2 years ago. Toxic mother-in-law shows up at 5 in the damn morning today. Imagine our confusion when this lady pops up on our doorstep before sunrise. Dear husband and I are not morning people. I don't mind getting up early sometimes. We waltz to the door, open it, and this half-drunk 60-year-old woman yells surprise, as if this were something to be happy about. Mother-in-law, are you drunk? I had to ask. She denies, saying alcohol spilled on her during the flight, yet the smell is on her breath. So where's dear daughter? She asked, like we really want to start a conversation at 5 in the damn morning. We tell her she's sleeping. She wants to wake her up to say hi, like that makes the least bit of sense. We tell her flat out no. She tries to argue, but waking a teenager up in the morning is not what I want to deal with. Finally she lets it go, saying she's going to go to the guest bedroom, shower, and get a bit of rest. I'm totally okay with this. We carry her 2 suitcases to the guest room, and call it a night, or morning. Seriously though, who needs that much crap to spend a few days out of town? I wish this is where I can say it ended, but no. Maybe after 30 minutes of tossing and turning because I can never seem to go back to sleep once I'm up, dear daughter screams. Dear husband and I race to her room, and what the F do we see? A naked mother-in-law in dear daughter's bed? I ask her what the hell is she doing, and she claims to have confused the guest bedroom with dear daughter's, even though they're not even on the same floor. Dear daughter is going out of her mind. I would too if my naked grandmother had tried to lay beside me. She claims it was an accident, which I still don't buy. Dear daughter was not having any of it. Neither was I. She wraps back in her towel and goes to get dressed. Lady wasn't even here a day, and has already started some crap. Also, I didn't think something like this was sexual assault. That is on me. I get it, but I understand that now. Dear daughter does have a lock on her door. In no way did she say she felt unsafe. I told dear husband she should leave, but he is adamant she stays because of the weather, and this lady can get him to do whatever he wants. I'll take dear daughter to the police station and file a report, but chances are it won't get anywhere because dear husband would most likely tell me I'm overreacting. Okay, for those saying, if it were a man would I let it go like I did with her? I didn't just let it freaking go. I tried to tell dear husband she should leave. She guilt-tripped him into staying. What the F am I supposed to do when he hardly ever listens to me when it comes down to her? Also, I can't leave. Dear husband won't allow it. I did think about the safety of my daughter, still am. I'd leave if I had a choice. He'd be beyond angry if he found out I was trying to leave. Also, my dear daughter is safe. She knows this. She'd tell me otherwise. I'm going to take her to the police station today. I will keep my child safe regardless. So, please understand that I am trying my best to continue be a good parent. There's no way in hell I'd ever let anything happen to her. I didn't put the woman out because dear husband let her stay. If I had a choice, mother-in-law would be out and gone within the hour. Toxic mother-in-law called me a bitch and got angry that dear husband and I had plans on my birthday. Trigger warning, neglect. I want to preface this by saying it's all happened within the last 24 hours. It's dealt with, and I just need to get this off my chest, rant a bit, and then move forward. I don't talk to my birth family because of a long and complicated 18 years, but without going into a lot of detail, up until I was 8 I never celebrated my birthday. When I was 7 this new girl transferred into my school. We shared a birthday, and every time she had a birthday her mother would send her to school with a cupcake. When we turned 8 she found out it was also my birthday, and split it in half for us to share. Every year after that she would bring 2. She would give me 1 at lunch, and that was my celebration from ages 8 to 16. She left school at 16, and I went to college while she worked full-time, and we eventually drifted apart. But when I left school and moved out, I kept track of my birthdays. Every 4th October, like clockwork, I would buy myself a cupcake, and that would be my celebration each year. And to this day, although I'm now 30 and married, I still do this. Dear husband goes all out every year for my birthday, even before we got together when we were still just friends. He cooks or takes me somewhere nice, and gets me flowers, and goes to every possible length to show me how much he loves and appreciates me, and whatever he does always culminates with a cupcake. Then yesterday, October 4th, I turned 30. Hooray for milestones. Dear husband bought me roses, made reservations at a local restaurant I've been dying to try, and we had a walk along the beach before heading home for a selection of old musicals and cupcakes. We have a landline, because we're old. It rang, so dear husband muted it at the speaker. The only people who call it are our parents. I ignore mine, and work, and it wasn't a work number. This morning I checked it. The voicemail had gone from empty to full overnight. All from toxic mother-in-law, all made within a few hours of each other, all getting angrier and angrier. Before you read these, you should know that dear husband is 32, and moved out at 19, but still goes to Friday night dinners with his family to see lovable father-in-law and his JY siblings. Hey, sweetie, it's Friday night dinner. Where are you? I know you said you made plans, but that shouldn't stop you from seeing your mother. Where are you? Call me. You know what my nerves are like. Check in so I know you're all right. A cupcake is not a plan. You're ignoring your own mother so you can eat cupcakes? I don't care what that swine wants. When your mother calls you, you answer. I didn't get to hear the rest of the messages, because while they were playing dear husband moved past me, unplugged the phone from the wall, and put everything away in a nearby box. He then reads aloud while he wrote out a text. Dear toxic mother-in-law, I don't appreciate you leaving OP and myself abusive voicemails the day after her birthday. I made clear what our plans were, and I am an adult. There is no reason I should have to check in with you 24/7. I have attended every Friday night dinner since moving out in order to stay in touch with lovable father-in-law and JY siblings, but after hearing what you called OP, I think it might be best for me to stay in touch with them separately. I love you, but I value myself and OP more, and neither of us deserve to be screamed at over voicemail because you expect a married 32-year-old to not have plans on his wife's birthday. I am going to block your number, and want you to consider this an official timeout. Do not contact me. I will contact you when I am ready. Respect these boundaries, as if you try to contact me or OP before then, your timeout will become permanent. We have no idea if she contacted him after that, because, true to his word, he sent it, and then blocked her number. Then I blocked her number. The siblings, and lovable father-in-law are probably getting the brunt of it, but they've been telling us for a while now that if we wanted to go and see we can, as she's never liked me. We're thinking of starting a Saturday night dinner for the Just Yes in-laws. I just needed to get this off my chest, have a little rant, and say that I'm just so ridiculously proud of dear husband, and his shiny steel spine. Intro, and help. She cut my hair while I was asleep. Frankly, I am lost. My just no mill is mental, completely mental. She has always treated me like crap. My future dear husband tries his best. His spine is shiny, but it has zero impact. I can't go into the details of the distant past because I would be here forever. So let us go with the latest situation. Future dear husband and I are getting married in October. Future mother-in-law has been difficult from day one, trying to organize my wedding to what she wants. I have done my best setting boundaries, but it all came to a head, no pun intended, yesterday. She dropped by uninvited. I was tired from work, like really tired. I tried to put her off, but she barged in. Future dear husband was due home in about 20 minutes. Now, I wanted long hair for my wedding. I always have. Maybe I am old-fashioned, but it's my choice. I have tried really hard, and it was down to my shoulder blades. Keyword is was. I was dumb enough to doze off while future mother-in-law was in the house. She was messing around in the kitchen. Next thing I know, something had grabbed a huge chunk of hair, and snip. It's been cut off on level with my head. Stubble length, and there she was, looming over me with a twisted smile, and a pair of scissors. A hunk of hair in her hand. I lost it. I shoved and I pushed her till she was out of my damn house, flat on her ass in my drive before I slammed the door. Call future dear husband in a complete fit. He calls her, and demands to know what the hell she was thinking. Her words? She is a dyke inside. I was just showing you the truth. My mother-in-law tried to sell my deceased parents' belongings at a garage sale without telling me. So, here's the deal guys. My boyfriend, 39, M, and I, 34, F, have been together for 12 years. When we first got together, we knew immediately we had something special. However, I was working full-time, going to school full-time, and working a part-time gig. So, the idea of marriage was a distant one. At least until I finished my education, started a career, and obtained more than 4 hours of sleep at night. Oh, but what's that saying again? Life happens when you're busy making plans. Welp. In 2011, my dad suddenly passed away. My mom's broken heart followed him a few years later. They were married for 46 years, and both of them passed away young and sudden. They were only in their early 60s. Long story short, I had to quickly have an estate sale on my parents'/childhood home in order to pay for their services. The quickness of everything combined by the shock and grief of things made me feel like a fire had broken out. I felt as if I had to just grab a few little sentimental things and get on with my life. So I did. My boyfriend's parents came on the day of the estate sale. I truly thought it was for support, but I learned the only reason they came was to get cheap stuff. I honestly don't blame them for coming for cheap stuff. Home tools, yard tools are expensive. But my problem arises when my boyfriend's parents wanted my deceased mom and dad's big-ticket items for free. Freaking cars, major appliances, sleep number bed, crap like that. Like dude, come on. My boyfriend's parents are cheap, period. No way around that. I get it. Long story short, I found my mother-in-law selling my dead parents' possessions at a garage sale that I was not supposed to attend. Yay in-laws. So, here is the real justification for my anger. Also, it's difficult for me to describe what happens next because it truly showcases my ugliest side. But, by popular demand, here we go. Basically, my in-laws attend the estate sale. I had to sell my parents' stuff in order to get the house on the market. They received some big-ticket items for free. One day, I pulled up to my in-laws' house to see they were having a garage sale. The first thing I saw was my mom's motorized scooter with a $300 price tag on it. After looking around, I noticed even more of my parents' items for sale. Old recipe books, my dad's teeter hang-up, and various other small things that may mean nothing to most people. But to me, these items are legit the only things I have left from my parents. I totally lost my crap, you guys. I pulled the price tag off the scooter, walked up to my mother-in-law, in front of customers, her husband, my boyfriend, and everyone, and said, "When in the F were you gonna tell me that you decided to sell my dead parents' crap for your own profit?" The look on her face was pure shock. She ignorantly replied with, "Well, I was only going to keep 1/3 of the profit. I was gonna give you whatever money was left over," which I'm sure is probably true. I totally believe her that she was going to give me whatever money was left over, but what pissed me off was the fact that her cheap ass had absolutely no idea the moral boundaries she was crossing. I looked at my boyfriend, who was just standing there, watching silently as all of this was unfolding around him. I looked back at my mother-in-law, and told her, "The very least you could have done is given me a heads up. If you were planning on selling my family's items, I could have at least contacted my living relatives to see if they wanted to take these things before you decided to make a buck off them." I announced, "This garage sale is closed. Everybody leave, and get the F out of my face." My mother-in-law was like, "You're being silly, you don't have to close the garage sale." I took one look at her, and everyone walked away. I proceeded to take everything I found of mine or my parents' things off the tables, and I haven't spoken a word to my boyfriend's mom since. That was about a month ago. I know hate is a strong word, but I really think I hate my mother-in-law. She's so ignorant, and so cheap. I can't handle it. I know I behaved poorly, but I believe the severity of the situation called for a heavy dose of vulgarity and anger in order to get through to her thick skull. I laid into my boyfriend pretty well also for not chiming up and saying anything when I was on my rant. I spent the next couple of weekends at my sister's house, and I'm still questioning my relationship. I just don't think I can spend a future with someone all while completely despising their mother. I know my worth. At least I think I do. Now I just have to have the balls, and do what's right for everyone, and leave. Thanks for hearing me out, guys, and thanks for letting me show you my deepest, ugliest side. I hope your lives are going better than mine right now. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.